came out and said they're blocking Flock
Okay.
as part of their extension.
But I doubt that the Google incognito would block it. However, there are extensions that would.
Well, Google Incognito, in conjunction with searching through DuckDuckGo, doesn't seem to show up anywhere else in my other searches and anything else. There is in it, because that was the hint. If I just go into Facebook and said, "Oh, is this the same thing I just browsed for?" Definitely something's wrong. That's the hint. So
Well,
if you start getting stuff advertised that you went into this other area, and okay, then none of this should ever show up, and most of the time it doesn't. So when it does show up, it says, "Ah, that's how I knew incognito mode no longer was incognito."
Right.
Yeah.
I have an Android phone anyway, so probably Google knows everywhere I go and everything I do anyway.
They do. They do.
Not only that, but it's keeping tabs on your health too.
Oh, I like the new Google Fit. It has new features. You can actually put your finger on the camera and it will measure your pulse rate. And then you hold the phone in front of you where it's your face and chest, and it will analyze your breathing rate also. It does both of those. Now I have a Pixel phone. I don't know if it's only in Pixel for now.
I think it's only on Pixel. Doesn't sound like something my Motorola would do.
But it's kind of cool because it actually shows your pulse adjusting as it's taking readings.
Now, if my phone develops legs and starts walking away, then I know things are bad.
There you go.
After you did that, Sid, did you start getting more targeted advertising for like oxygen machines and stuff?
What is weird is that Google bought Fitbit, and yet the two of them can't talk to each other.
Maybe that's a good thing.
So there's a third-party app written by a 17-year-old kid, which runs at night and synchronizes the data between the two.
That's cool.
But
as long as they don't also share with Amazon, and then Whole Foods starts figuring out what you should be eating.
There you go.
How long will it be until everybody is synced to a robot and you get a shadow?
What makes you think it hasn't already occurred? What's on your hip right now? Doesn't it respond to you by voice?
The whole world's connected, yes.
There are some really strange things that I've seen my phone respond to, and it wasn't the conventional thing that you use to wake the phone up.
Yeah, the Amazon speaker, I won't say the A word because it's to my side here, sometimes just starts talking about something randomly.
Now, the question is, if somebody else says, "Alexa, hello," does it respond?
When it's coming from the computer, definitely not. When it's coming from the computer, definitely not.
How about the TV?
No, not at all.
I know that my son-in-law once woke up out of their falling asleep when they were staying here while their house was being renovated. And the Google Home Assistant was playing some music or something, trying to.
Yeah,
he doesn't know what the heck caused it. And I looked it up and it was something from a commercial on TV.
Amazon has done a nice job of solving that issue with commercials. Basically, they know if a bunch trigger at one time in an area, it means it must be from a TV ad, and they ignore it then.
Oh, so it shares information with all of its other nearby Google Homes and Alexas.
Well, they know pretty accurately how many people at any given time are activating and asking for something. And if the number is much higher than that, then they know it must be from an ad.
Yeah, I would think. Unless you played something on demand or played something back and it was at a random time and there it goes.
Cortana on my computer keeps, just right now, doesn't ever talk to me, but it tries to talk to the television. it hears things on the TV and then tries to, answer it. And just responded to me a second.
I said, what do you mean I don't listen to you? I listen to you all the time. You just don't have anything to say. I'm waiting for one of those assistants.
It also doesn't have any answers.
Yeah.
I disabled all my voice controls. And I don't want to have to be talking to my devices here in my apartment because we have ceilings and floors that are like cardboard.
Yeah.
Everybody in the building could hear.
And they could open your garage door for you.
We don't have garages. We're
Oh,
out in the
you
open,
don't? Okay.
open air,
Yeah.
not
Hey,
even assigned.
I have a Chamberlain, and Chamberlain is weird. I can know whether the garage is open or closed, and I can use the app to open or close it, but you can't use voice to do that unless you pay them for their subscription service.
Right. And I didn't think that that was worth the subscription service, because then somebody, if they knew where my device was, could go outside and just yell through the wall, to do that. And it couldn't tell the difference. It was my voice or somebody else's.
Yeah, I mean, my answer to that was I put a new lock on the inner garage door, which is electronic, but it's not voice or other activated. You have to use numbers on the keypad. And so if somebody was able to open the garage, fine, they can't get in the house.
Yeah, I chose not to add the voice portion of it. Is that this is fine. If somebody wants to come over, I've given the kids the right access and they can open it with their cell phones, but for the most part, they don't have to.
Mhm.
There's always the keypad, so they can always do that too. I'm just waiting for the next generation. Okay, so with all the problems with border control, how soon before somebody says we need Terminator robots? Bum, 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 ba-dum. Only a matter of time, folks. Only a matter of time. Oh, yes.
No idea on that.
Okay, what did you do there, Sid?
Go to Boston, go to
Are you
Boston
underwater?
Go to Boston Scientific, you'll find all the robots you want.
Well, I saw the article in 60 Minutes. I was quite impressed by some of their devices.
Yeah, how they do their somersaults and everything like that.
Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, they're a local company out here in Boston. Boston Dynamics.
Yes, quite interesting.
I once
Oh.
saw them. I once encountered their dog when it was walking up one of our local hills on one of its field tests.
Cool. That same dog was probably used in that one of the sci-fi series on Epics. I think they used the dogs there, except that they were not nice dogs.
No, they never are.
The dog that you saw, Bob, can you tell me, did it have metal teeth or no teeth?
I don't think they bothered to put any teeth into it.
How about a tail that wags?
Mhm.
They could, but
Yeah.
I don't think they even realize, or maybe they do, the role that a dog's tail plays in balancing the dog.
Right. Well, that's the point, because the dogs need that tail. When you cut the tail on some of those dogs, they're not as agile as they once were.
Although there are some dogs that are just bobtailed naturally.
Yeah. Yep. So, all right. Other question. Let's see. Let me see. Did I answer all of your questions, Dennis? Let's see.
Except let me just ask one thing. So if it goes back, I do want to figure out how to recover. So if I start this 3-year-old laptop up, hook it up, let it start doing updates, all of a sudden, if it won't boot on me, how do I recover? So there's something I must probably need to do to.
Well, first of all,
Capability.
on whatever version of Windows that you currently have on it, Windows 10, make
Right.
sure you have a bootable image of that image to recover to. Also, if you're going to a particular next version of Windows 10, make sure you have a bootable USB with that image on it. And if it's trying to do a double jump, make sure you have the third one. So whatever one it's successful to on the first upgrade, in case it does 2 upgrades, because some of those might actually do serial updates, do the first major jump, do the next major jump. Sometimes they can skip it, not always advisable, because sometimes you miss a driver or 2 or something that needed to be fixed. But they say everything is included in the newest release, but not always so, especially if you have legacy drivers for old equipment. Sometimes you got to go back and find those things or tell it to download it from one of the other sites, like HP 4000 jet direct printers. Got to look for them somewhere else. Sometimes you got to pull it off the HP site. Normally, I keep those in folders. If you do the upgrade, keep your files. Try and do an upgrade in place. You don't want to do a cold installation unless you're ready to throw everything away, and you better have a good backup then. Several good backups.
I actually have none of my own files on it. It's just a virgin install.
Did you bring any drivers down to make it work?
I never hooked a printer up to it or anything
Okay,
else.
then you have nothing to worry about. Then
Except
it should
if
upgrade.
doesn't-
It should upgrade
Except if
fine.
it doesn't reboot. I mean, it doesn't come
Well,
up after enough.
the other thing you can do is you can test to see whether or not by booting the install version on a USB, boot up the latest version that you're going to try and go to and see whether it boots up on it and it's ready to do the install, because it does a sanity check to see whether or not your hardware is supported by that operating system as a function of that bootable copy of Win 10. So if you want to go right to the latest and greatest, put a USB stick with the bootable latest and greatest and boot up the install and see whether it complains. If it blue screens right there, chances are no.
Okay.
So far, I've been fortunate when I've been able to do my upgrades. Hasn't cost me anything in terms of new licenses or anything. I've just used old Win 7 licenses and gone to Pro to meet immediately, and it worked fine. But that may not always be the case with the newer versions of Win 10. So, but once you have a license and a version, then it allows you to keep on going for who knows how long. So other questions we have?
I got one.
Sure.
In Microsoft Word, it happens to be 2013.
Mm-hmm.
I've got it on both my laptop and desktop. The desktop is fine. My new laptop, all of a sudden something happened where you use the control end and home keys. I did a little research, and there happens to be a file, I think, that's associated with those keys, and it doesn't work. And I'm just wondering, would I be better off just reinstalling Word and taking it from there, or try and maybe delete that one file and let it rebuild itself?
Well, if it's the startup file, you can delete it and it will actually generate it.
It's not generating it.
They may have deprecated it in one of the updates, though. That's why-
That's what I'm thinking happened.
What you can check, you'd have to check on Microsoft and see whether or not they say anything about it being deprecated in 2013, such and such a release.
Yeah. Well, I found a document. Maybe I'll take a look and see if I can find. I downloaded something, possible how to fix it.
Yeah, because it just sounds like one of the control files. I mean, you can always do a repair update on Office 2013 and see whether or not it does anything.
That's kind of what I was thinking about doing.
Oh, you can always do a repair.
Yeah.
I mean, you go to the add remove and it'll say, do you want to repair your installation? Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead. And then it'll go through it and try and put it back.
Yeah. That's all I was trying to get, a different way possibly.
I mean, worst comes to worst, if you have your license key, you can uninstall 2013 and reinstall 2013.
Yeah.
And it will happily reinstall and not lose any of your other settings.
Yeah. I may just,
That always seemed to be kind of weird. Like, I just didn't uninstall Word. How does it know who I am?
Yeah.
Oh, it remembers. So that may not cure it if it's the control file.
Yeah. I'm gonna take it.
Is it normal ...
I don't know what file it was.
Some comes to think of it, it might be if the normal dot.
It might be something like that. I don't remember
Yeah,
what the file
if
name
that
was.
file is corrupted in the startup, or it's locked or something, or you have an extra copy of it, it may be confusing it.
Yeah.
So in which case, what they just tell you to do is to delete it and let it and while Word is shut down, and then restart Word and see if it creates it.
That's what I might trying to do.
Yeah,
I think they talked a little bit about deleting that particular file.
that
I gotta go find my document, you know, I haven't had time to do it.
so other questions?
I got a question.
Sure, Jack.
Yeah, my wife got a laptop. It's about 5 years old. About a year and a half ago, we put a new battery in it, and she uses it plugged in all the time.
Mm-hmm.
She came down one day and went to her machine, and the keyboard was all bowed. So is it a function of heat and the battery bursting, or would it be something else?
Most likely the battery is expanded. If you, is the battery removable on that or not?
I had to take, no, it's not removable. You got to go through a lot of stuff to get it out.
Sounds like the battery failed. Was it an original battery from the
No.
manufacturer?
It was not an original battery.
That's probably why. That's one of the chances you take by putting in a non-manufacturer certified battery is if it's not made to what they expect and it overcharges it, they will expand, especially if you buy a much bigger one than was originally specified.
Okay, well, the battery that we bought lasted for about a year, and it died. So she just used it on the plug-in,
Mm-hmm.
and so there was a lot of heat generating going on, I guess. So I guess that's it. So we bought our new one. She's going to get it soon.
Okay.
And sometime when I get time, I'll probably take that other one apart. And
Yeah, take it apart, take the battery out, see what happened to it.
Well,
Whether or not it distorted anything else when you said it started to bulge on the keyboard.
Well, she can use the keyboard except for the number part. That won't work.
Okay, yeah, if it bends it too far, it'll break it. It could very well could. What brand was it?
HP.
Oh, an HP, but it was probably a consumer unit, right?
Yeah, I think we bought it at Costco.
Yeah, so all see, that's the problem with consumer laptops and such. I like to harp on it a little bit. That's why I prefer the business laptops, because the business laptop, like this one right now, will not charge to 100%, even though I'm plugged in. It says I'm at 95 or 98%, because it says anything over 92 is good. And it'll run only off of the power pack, will not charge the battery anything additional. The only time it's going to use the battery is if I unplug it out of the wall. And then it can use it to keep alive. Can use some minor amounts.
We just
But that way the battery isn't being charged all the time.
we just bought a Dell Inspiron from Dell itself.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to be a business machine or not? How do you know?
Depends on which side of the site you went and ordered it from.
From Dell.
Yeah, I know, but Dell has two sides to its site. It used to have a business side and used to have a retail side. The dimensions for the most part were retail machine. The precision were for the most part enterprise in terms of laptops.
Well, we'll know when we get it.
Probably. If you had lots of options for handling CAD CAM, it's probably a business machine.
Okay.
But I had a Dell Dell Precision with an M65, and it did not have the nice battery stuff like the HPs do. It overcharged the battery, and that battery was a 9-cell lithium, and to replace that battery was $245. That was, thank you, Motorola. So,
Well, when we changed the battery on this one, it had to open up the cover, and there was two small little wires in there that you had to unplug to get that cover off. And you know, it must have little hands to get in there, but we managed to get through it and popped them two off.
you can tell the commercial machines when you flip over the laptop and that you don't need any tools to take the bottom off.
Yeah. Okay.
In fact, some of my small form factor desk machines, you can open up the whole thing with and not have any tools to pop everything apart. Take a disk drive out, put a new disk drive in, put a new CD-ROM in.
I have a
CD,
Dell that
DVD.
does that now.
Yeah.
That just, but the battery's dead. I never purchased a new battery, so I just run it on the power.
Well,
But
what
it's
you
got-
what you
it's got
can
the
do,
real good.
what
Huh?
you can do is use a UPS.
Yes.
Run it on a power pack with the UPS. Same thing. You
Okay.
basically have battery backup in case it fails while you're typing, you know, if you're afraid of losing something.
Okay.
So either way,
Thank you.
no problem. Okay, other questions? I know Sanford's here because he's waiting for my presentation.
But he's quiet.
Yeah, I know he's quiet. He's also muted. He's happy. He was just chilling out.
I'm just letting you guys chat away. I'm enjoying the show.
Oh,
Actually, I do want to hear about those hard drives and the
I-
various ways they work and don't
Oh,
work.
there, it's like magic. And the problem I found was I went through lots of other presentations and I can point out some places where the information is just plain wrong.
Yeah.
So they talk about the width of the write head versus the width of the read head.
Yeah.
And in one presentation, the picture is just the opposite of what they talk about in the text.
That happens.
Yeah, there's stuff that's not quite. I was thinking about borrowing his pictorial picture. Said, wait a minute, I don't want to do this. This is wrong. This isn't worth taking. Just remember, stealing from one is plagiarism. Stealing from many is research.
Yeah.
So I do
So-
research.
That's a clever way of saying it.
Yes. It's also gets me out of a lot of hot water too. No, but I used a lot of references and tried to put pieces together and okay, what's a good picture for showing this? And yeah, it starts to make sense. So is anybody out there currently using any of the SMR drives?
I
that you
hope
know of?
not. I
Okay.
hope not.
There are some Western Digital Reds in the 2 to 5 gigabyte size, which are SMR drives.
True. And for a while, they weren't telling anybody.
No, they weren't. It wasn't on the spec sheet. And I think they got into a little bit of hot water on that. That may yet to be determined whether or not somebody decides to class action it or not.
Well, they finally fessed up to what they had done. So as far as that goes. And I think they did offer exchanges.
I would, yeah, I think they did too. For me, for most of my work, I'm still perfectly happy with CMR drives.
Yeah.
And it's unlikely that I'm going to have to migrate to something in the 20 gigabyte or 20 terabyte size, which would force me into those kind of storage.
Does Sanford have something to say?
Yeah, I do. What I don't understand is the SMR drives, why is it they create a conflict on some hardware or software basis?
It's in
Or
the present, it's in the
platforms.
presentation, but basically,
Okay, I can
if
wait
you
for
are
them.
adding to a disk drive all the time, you're fine. If you're just adding new files and it's continuously writing onto the end of a file or something, you're fine. It's when you go back and update something in the middle of a block that's already been rewritten. But you may not have control of that if this is a RAID drive. If you pull out a RAID drive and then plug in another RAID drive, a brand new one, and you use that for a while and that one fails, and you plug in your old one and the RAID drive tries to do what's called silvering. Silvering is a type of replication mechanism where it tries to read what's there and see, oh, I don't need to replace that. I need to get that. I don't need that. So I have the minimum number of write requests to bring this drive back to where it belongs. On a CMR drive, this might take a couple hours. On an SMR drive, depending on how many random writes is, the one guy was reporting it took 8 days and it still failed the integrity check. Yes. So if it goes good, you're okay. If it goes bad, it can be really ugly. And it's because of the way it has to do an update. If I want to change 1 byte in the middle of a single zone, I have to read the zone into cache, update the byte, write the zone back. You want to know how big the zone is?
Well, it sounds like it's operating like an SSD.
Yes, SSDs run the very similar. SSDs
Yeah.
can also run zoned as well. But the zone on an SMR drive is typically 256 megabytes.
Ooh,
That's a little bit of writing.
yeah.
And the other thing that you don't know is almost, I think virtually all SMR drives include a CMR portion of the drive. So they have a CMR section of the drive. That's where it posts stuff for updates that will be done while the drive is idle. Key, while the drive is idle, you have to have an idle time for the drive to do these updates in background when you're not doing anything else or making a demand of the hard drive. If you don't give it enough time to do its stuff in idle and it fills up the CMR area.
In other words, don't use them if you're streaming or
Yep.
transcoding.
No, you could be streaming or transcoding because you're writing, adding. But I wouldn't use it if I had to go back and update something, or if I'm using a ZFS file system.
Mhm.
Okay, zettabyte
Yeah.
file system, might have some issues. Or Z file system, should I call it? Yes, the ZFS.
In the Linux world, we call it zettabyte.
Yeah, zettabyte. Yeah. But yeah, especially the RAID can be very problematic. That was the one that as the example, that took over 8 days, and it still failed the integrity check. And he was using the RAID Z format, which is kind of interesting anyway. If you have a lot of files and a lot of stuff, you might migrate eventually to ZFS just because of the capacity for having files larger than reality, then some, and labeled to span multiple volumes. But yeah, you don't run into any of the limits that we've seen in other things. I mean, I still find limits like, oh crap, I can't write that 4 gigabyte file there. That file system doesn't support a file that size. Oh. You have to realize that there are some limits on some of those older file systems.
Well, I do perfectly well, except that I had a couple of hard drives, which in Linux gparted declared that they didn't support a 64-bit file system. And the file system checker in Linux was saying that there was a bad magic number for the superblock. Apparently, this is a widespread problem in Linux.
Uh-huh. Which version of Linux you running?
I'm running Ubuntu, but I also run Fedora. This one's
Okay.
for Ubuntu.
But
And
you're
it
on a
was
relatively recent release, right? You're way up above 17.
Ubuntu 2004
Yeah.
LTS.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it was formatted either with Ubuntu disks or with gparted, the very latest gparted, or the bootable gparted. Same results.
Huh. Was it
And lots
something
of
with the disk?
I bought a new hard drive, a C8. This
Mm-hmm.
one was a Western Digital. Same problem. Fresh disk, format it with gparted or with Ubuntu disks. The file system checker in Linux says that it has a bad magic number.
Well, the question would be, that's the thing to look for is if you can, read the super block and see what the magic number that it's complaining about is, it might be an FSCK problem.
Yeah, that's what I think it is. I think it's a bug in the checker.
Yeah. Or it's not run with privilege and then it can't read the super block or something like that.
I tried sudo because the drive, when it's formatted with gparted, is initially root
Okay.
privileges. So you have to run sudo.
Okay. Well, it should have been able to read it, but it may not. I'm wondering if it's got one of these offset issues, like it's not reading the real super block, it's reading the super block plus an offset and it's confused.
That is a possibility. Online they never seem to have resolved it. And it's been going on for many years.
See, that's why you need ZFS, because it doesn't need FSCK anymore.
Yeah. How
Or
does,
so they say, or so they say.
how does ZFS do its integrity checks?
Well, it has integrity checks built in, and there are ways to do integrity checks. However, by design, it never overwrites a portion of a file it needs. It writes it to a new place, and basically not until everything is committed is it linked in. So it's inherently crash proof.
Okay, well, Ubuntu is chattering about converting their distro.
Well,
to
that's the
ZFS.
problem is that, and I have this in my presentation, you can't use the license for ZFS with a built-in into Linux because they have conflicting open source licenses.
True.
So it can't be built in. You could probably add it in. And that's even with the open ZFS, you still have the same issue because they still kept their old licensing because they're not sure who had what source module where.
Right. Well, Red Hat and Fedora use ButterFS.
Yeah. Okay. So they're working around a re-engineered version. So
Yeah, that's Fedora 33 that converted to ButterFS, but I don't have that. I have Ext.
I see you, Kathy. You're peeking over the top of your screen.
Oh, sorry. I had the darndest time getting into the meeting. I tried going into the meeting on my iPad like I normally do. For the life of me, I could not open your email on my iPad, so I couldn't get to the link. So
Ooh.
I played around with that for a while, and I finally just went and got my computer, and I'm on my computer for the first time on Zoom, but I don't understand it. I could open your email on my phone, but anyway, I'm here half hour late.
Yeah. Hold on a second.
That's better than what I did one week.
Oh, well, I know one problem you probably got. You got SBC global address.
Yeah.
Why? You may not be able to read. You're not getting any updates on your email, are you?
I don't know. How would I know if I was getting updates?
You might have to generate what's called a specific, what is it called? A smart key. You might have to go into an AT&T. Hopefully you have an AT&T account you can do this with, or even if you don't have an AT&T account and you used to have an AT&T account, if you can still log into it, you might need to generate what's called a smart key. It's an alternative password to using your real password. And it's specifically for applications that read email. So
Yeah,
if you're
also-
trying to run something like Outlook, and all of a sudden you stopped getting updates on your SBC Global account, you have to generate a smart key, take the smart key, 13-digit, whatever it is, plunk it in as your password on Outlook, and now Outlook is happy again.
Well, I don't use Outlook. I just go into email via Yahoo.
Okay, well, it should be able to do it okay.
Yahoo requires
But in case
Yahoo.
you don't, that's one of the things that you have to look up and make sure you're covered in the future if you ever want to use an app. Because I heard that Comcast is going to be retiring its email reader on Android and Apple.
Already announced.
Yeah. Yeah, Bob.
Yahoo requires an app password. Yahoo
What-
requires an app password for most applications that'll read email.
Okay, so it might require the app password, the smart key password as well.
So when Verizon took over, they changed it over so that it kept warning me, your application is using an older login, it's not secure, etc.
Mhm.
So how do I generate this smart key alternative?
You log into an AT&T account that you used to originally generate that SBC Global. See if you can generate it. And so you go to the AT&T website, you log in with credentials from the old AT&T site. And if it still works, even though you don't have any AT&T products, you go into your email and you can say, I need to generate a smart key. It's a web page option on the AT&T site after you've logged in.
Well, the only AT&T thing I have is I have AT&T for my cell phone,
Yeah,
And
that
then-
works. That works.
So I should just be able to go into my AT&T account then
It's an option. Yeah.
and generate a smart key.
You generate a smart key for that email address. You're good to go then. And that's what you use in place of the password in the other places.
Okay.
Usually what happens is it stops reading your email.
I did have a problem. This was probably about 2 years ago that suddenly one day I just couldn't get into my SBC Global email.
Uh-huh.
And I called AT&T about it, and they said, oh yeah, we know what the problem is, and they fixed it for me.
Yeah.
And then I was good to go. I was without my I was out without my SBC Global email for about a week or so before I finally got it resolved. But
Mhm. Yeah.
and I mean, I do have a Gmail account. I've been slowly migrating stuff over to Gmail, but you know, you have so much stuff.
Yeah, I found the smart key problem on 2 different SBC Global accounts.
Oh, did you?
Actually, 3 now. Come to think of it.
Yeah,
So who do we have join here? AI 98H1.
Yeah, can you have him go to his picture and rename himself?
Yeah, you want to rename yourself so we have a name here?
You can call yourself Fred. No, I'm kidding. I have to ask about that with Yahoo because I have no more SBC Global accounts. I have no AT&T accounts, but I was able to update my Yahoo account just fine. I don't know what I did differently, but
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had a problem with my Yahoo stuff, but because I still have a Yahoo account.
Yeah, if you go in by webmail, there's no problem. But if you go in on a device or an app that doesn't have all the bells and whistles that they need for OAuth, then you'll need a password.
okay, that explains it because I just use webmail because I get warnings from them saying, if you don't look at it in the next period of time, we're going to shut your account.
I also get those about from some spurious claiming to be Outlook accounts, Outlook admin saying you are going to stop getting all this good. I said, well, how did I get your message? You sent it to me via
Really?
mail.
Well, I just got an email about my PayPal account that said it was going to be restricted.
Yeah, I get those too, and I report
Yeah.
those to spoof@paypal.com,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty good about renaming those.
I always like the announcements that I have to update my bank credentials, especially when it's a bank I have no account with.
I have a better story this week from somebody, a friend that told me about, they got an email saying that they charged $450 for a web security system, which of course they had no knowledge of or never wanted. And so they stupidly called them up. And when they called them up, they said, oh, well, we'll take the charge off, had them log into their system. They took over their account and then tried to transfer $45,000
Ugh.
before they figured out that this was a scam.
Yeah,
Because
and
they
it was
answered the
probably in
email.
Jamaica too, right?
No, I don't know. These were real con people, apparently, because they had no idea they were being scammed. And when all of a sudden money was being transferred between their accounts and they were saying, oh, well, we'll put it was an accident. We just took $45,000 by accident because we
Yeah,
typed
right.
the 450 wrong.
Uh-huh.
And that was a scam. And thankfully, none of it ever got to the bank,
Ooh.
but did have to go through their computer to be able to take the system off that they took over their computer on,
Oh, yeah.
which was all through Chrome, and just deleted all those things off and searched for anything that was left over. But you never know if if you got everything.
Yeah, that's kind of scary when people get, there used to be some machines I'd have to go in basically monthly and take off a whole lot of stuff like, why did you download this? Why do you have 3 antivirus programs? It doesn't work better with more than one. They fight each other. But no,
Well, there's bad guys out there. So when you get a junk, and if you looked at the original email, of course, it was a junk email.
yeah,
It wasn't from the company they were representing. And so, you know, you gotta just keep warning people to pay attention to anything they click on.
yeah.
Always
And-
look at the email address that you get it from. That's a
If you
big
can
key.
see it, because on some mobile devices, if it's sent as a BCC, they won't let you expand it.
Yeah,
Well, it depends on the email you're using. I use Outlook myself, but so
Yeah, but Outlook on a phone, and you get a blind carbon copy, will not expand the name.
yeah.
I understand. So
So if it goes to spam, or you can't expand it, it's spam.
Yeah.
well, again, there's con people in the background that know what they're doing to be able to get to that point.
Most of the time, when I've tried to track down where the email supposedly authored from, and I try and track down where it may have
Mm.
originated, it's usually an IP address that's no longer available.
Well, of course.
It came up, sent the stuff out, and then I look inside the message if it's not super encrypted and said, okay, what's inside of here? Where are you trying to lead me to?
There you go. There
Yep.
used to be a website where you could paste in the headers of a message,
There's
and it
still,
would
yeah,
parse it and look for where it came from.
yeah, there still are ones. I got to see if I can remember all of them. I used to have them on my bar here, but I don't think it's here anymore.
Well,
And-
phones are the same way, where there's no real number behind it.
Yeah.
It's a fake number.
Oh, sometimes it's not a fake number. Sometimes they just borrow somebody else's used number
Yes.
without their
Yes.
permission. And you call them up that, no, I didn't call you. Yes. There was I think it was MX Toolbox, as I recall, was one of the ones that still exists to parse the headers. And it'll tell you where it thinks it came from and some other items as well.
This was a scam using Panda software as what they were trying to push to
Hmm.
take over the machine. And by the way, they were so brazen that the next day they called back again.
Is that brazen or stupid?
I think, and then you said, oh, you have to call me back on my other number, and then give them for the local number for the FBI.
Well, I mean, there's, it's not hard for people to be gullible.
Mm.
Yeah, there's a lot of those out there. Just don't do anything stupid. Yes. Okay, well, we're getting close here. I guess I could start my presentation. So let me launch it up here. Get it ready. And let's see.
You got any video in there?
No, I do not.
Okay.
Why, am I worried about video?
No, I just wanted, if you did, you got to check those two little check marks at the lower left. So
On the
if you
share
have sound-
screen? Oh, yeah, optimized for video clip.
Yeah,
Okay.
just a reminder, that's all.
Yeah. Haven't had to do that too many times, but okay. Let's see. I'll just do it this way. I don't know if I want to start it in a presentation. We'll just do it this way. All right, everyone can see that? It's not too big, not too small?
That's good.
Okay.
Wait, there's something there? No, I'm kidding.
All right, I got to figure out where my page up and page down is. It's hard to
Well,
see.
you
like-
may want to click on the from beginning there at the top to turn it into a slide.
Well, I didn't know if I was going to do that or just page through and that way I can go back and forth if I need it easier.
You can still do it with the arrows. Anyway.
I know I can. Here, you want me to, but if I do that, can everyone still see it?
Yep,
Okay,
Okay.
want to make sure it didn't roll off of somebody's screen.
nope,
Looks fine.
Okay, so disc recording, let's go back a little bit. It's been around for at least 60 years. on the old Univac fast tran drums and the big Burroughs fixed head discs, and IBM, which had both the original 3330 and the Winchester modules a little bit later than that. But yeah, disc recording has pretty much been done for a long time. And until 2005, the more popular method of recording was still LMR, longitudinal magnetic recording. Right about that time was when Hitachi, now moved to HGST, part of Western Digital, developed the perpendicular magnetic recording. That's when we started seeing the 1 terabyte plus drives. So they came out with those right back then, and they were pretty reliable. And as they got a little bit better media and using shielded heads, you got an increase in the density with smaller bit sizes to get in like a 10-fold increase. So one of the first one of these devices was a 40 gigabyte, which had 133 gigabits per square inch. But a couple of years later, they were up to the 1 terabyte DeskStar had 325 gigabits per square inch. So they were getting a lot of information onto the platters. But this is still conventional recording. Both of them use non-overlapping patterns on the disk. So the write head always writes wider because the write head is also the erase head. Okay, so the write, it writes wider than the read head, which then can be shifted micro inches in either direction to try and read stubborn errors. And the non-overlapping tracks allow random read writes on a sector basis so that I can update anything anywhere on the disk just by reading the sector, updating the information, and writing it back. And your access times are somewhat consistent, basically improved only by the rotational speed of the disk. So everything was pretty much that's status quo. The cache sizes you would see on the drives were typically maxed out around 64 megabytes. Well, CMR drives are accessible at the block level for read-write, and updating a block doesn't impact or affect any of the other blocks that are adjacent to it. Then we get this thing called SMR, which stands for Shingled Magnetic Recording, which also has a write head overlapping an adjacent track. So the read head is smaller and reads in the non-overlapping regions. So with this kind of recording, they can get up into the 20 terabyte range, or they can use it for a smaller size, but use less platters. So you don't have to have 5 platters inside or 2 platters. You can get by with a single platter. But if you ever have to update it, it has to read the adjacent tracks when updating that sector so they can be rewritten, and it's by the zone. And the zone is 256 megabytes. The types of SMR drives are either host managed or device managed. Host managed means the host basically has control of the blocks and what gets written and read and where it lives. Device managed says the device is going to keep track of where some of this stuff is, and you just handle it with logical blocks. And a host aware is one where the host thinks it knows what it's doing, but it's still a drive managed option. So do they have an CMR section? Yes, they do. They have to have a CMR section where they can quickly write things that need to be updated. So they post in a section of the disk these updates where, oh, I got to read and update this byte or this whole sector in the middle of this zone with this new information. So they contain that CMR section of the drive, which caches those update requests, which are then written back to the whole zone, the SMR area, when the drive is idle. So it posts all these changes out there. And if it goes down and comes back up again, the drive knows where it was in the middle of doing some of this stuff. The problem is if that CMR cache fills up, and it's not the same thing as the main cache on the drive. The CMR cache has got to be significantly larger, and it's not always specified how big that is. But if that fills up, then the performance of the device drive is significantly reduced. because all tracks in a zone are rewritten as part of the update process, whether it's for, 1 byte or all the bytes. How big is the zone? Same as the cache, 256 megabytes. So if you have to go back and update a 1024 byte block, it's going to cost you the read write of a 256 megabyte block zone. And it's not slow if it's all done while your drive is idle. Most of the time you won't know it. And you won't need to do this if you're appending to a file and you're always writing sequentially. So if the CMR does, let's do that. Okay, if the CMR section does fill requests, some drives may not respond for as long as 60 seconds. And I have a link here that you can go look at the entire dissertation on this. All right, there. Now, here's what it really looks like, okay? So your device is really zones. And each one of those zones is 256 megabytes until you run out of zone X. And when you're writing in it, as long as you're going forward to the right, you're fine. You can just advance the zone right pointer. But if you're going back, zone reset occurs and you have to read and write that whole zone. So zone storage is not really new. It's not been known just for SMR drives. It's also used in SSD to reduce your amount of dynamic RAM requirements. And in the zoned SMR drives, you have special commands for both zone SCSI commands and zone ATA commands. How is this supported? Well, if you have a Linux with at least Ubuntu 17.10 or above, it's all supported. For other Linux systems, I give you a link to go check your other Linux and other zone storage. You can go check that. For the most part, we're covered by Windows 10. I don't know what their recommendation is on some older operating systems because they don't advertise. If it's a device managed, it's pretty much oblivious to the operating system, but your mileage may vary. Let me go back one. So here's what the CMR track looks like. There's always a guard between the tracks. So whatever I do on track N and N+1 is independent of each other. But when I go to the next one, you can see track N, N+1, N+2, N+3. As long as I'm writing down here after N+3, no problems. But if I go back and I want to run track N+1, well, that's going to affect 2, 3, 4, and anything after that, because they all overlap as I'm writing them back. So here's another picture of how the zones look. So here's my read-write requests, and then here's how the zones are laid out. So there's zone 1, zone 2, zone 0, zone 1, zone 2. So those two different ways. Conventional CMR drive laid out on discrete tracks. And there's a very conventional mapping of where it is on the disk to what logical block number it is. One thing I should point out, just because I have a logical block number ascending doesn't necessarily mean it's in the same zone. They could map the zones to wherever they want in the hard drive. So SMR drives are primarily designed for archival backups. So if you're always writing fresh information to a drive for a backup, it's basically laying down new tracks, and they don't require the other tracks to be read or rewritten. Drives that see a lot of updates for databases would not be good for an SMR drive. And applications which perform updates without having time for the drive to idle may also fill up the cache area and then slow down, and the application would probably fail. So you don't want to use this for anything real time.
I'll go down and do it later.
ZFS does not play well with SMR drives. And what I mentioned earlier, if you replace a defective drive in a RAID array with a previously used SMR drive, the time to resilver, that's copying the minimum data needed to restore the drive to pre-replacement status, can be exorbitant, because the resilvering process of writing is doing random reads in various areas, and it's trying to see, was this thing written on this backup drive? And if it had never been written, the SMR drives can report a sector not found. And if you get too many sector not founds, the ZFS file system kicks the drive out of the matrix. So again, let's do a little bit, what is ZFS? for those that have only heard about this in the presentation and they're not aware of it, but that's probably going to be one of the newer file systems that will take over for very large storage capacity areas. So you can either pronounce it ZFS or ZFS if you want to be cooler. They're pooled storage file system, and Sun Microsystem guys were the ones that originally designed this as part of their next generation file system project. Because Sun was based on BSD, and they migrated beyond it and they developed ZFS, and then they said, okay, we need to go beyond this. And they created this thing that should be pretty much future-proof for the most part. Free BSD is portable. It can be ported to it, but not to normal Linux because of the conflict between the CDDL versus the new public uses license. The two of them are conflicting with each other. So people have already checked out sources under the CDDL. They can't return them under the GNU license. So that's why it isn't being included in Linux kernels unless they redid the whole work and do exactly what was explained earlier. And Oracle had closed the open access to the ZFS, so OpenZFS took it over, and that's where they left it. ZFS is both a volume and a file manager together. It can span a series of drives or a pool. So here's basically, you got a bunch of disks, you have your volumes, you have the pool, and the file system and the ZVols basically are mapped through the pool to the different disks. Doesn't have to be consecutive. It could even be parts of disks too. Very flexible structure. Things that it supports: pooled storage. Copy on write is kind of cool. Copy on write is a technique that used to be done for virtual memory machines as well, so that anytime you had a write request in a block that was previously read-only, it would copy the information to a new block and use the new block. Same thing on a disk. Copy on write writes the information to a new block, so the old information is preserved in case of an error. And that's why you don't need to run file system check after a crash. Snapshots allow you to take a snapshot of an entire file system and then have the ability to recover deleted or updated files and file systems. There is a data integrity verification and automatic repair built in. So a lot of it will be automatically done when you plug in a new drive and it tries to automatically resilver the disk, especially if you're using RAID Z, which is a RAID 5. And one of the problems in RAID 5 is when I have different disks for data and parity, and one of them, and there's a thing occasionally when I'm restarting a RAID system, you can have this thing called a RAID 5 write hole, which means, guess what? The data and the parity disks don't match. I don't know what to do. Help me fix it. So they fixed it under ZFS. They have a maximum file size of 16 exabytes, big number, and a maximum of 256 quadrillion zettabytes in your storage pool. So a zettabyte is 10 to the 21st bytes. So the maximum storage is 256 times 10 to the 36 bytes. That's a big number. Bigger than you can count on your hands and fingers of every living human ever existed. So there's your gigabyte, there's your terabyte. So lots of them. Now, how do you tell them if you're looking at the model number? Well, you either go to the web, one of their websites, and you can try and figure out, okay, which ones are what kind of disk. See this where Western Digital calls this the small office, home office? This is the people they don't care about, and they want them to be slow. So they give them the device managed surface module recording. These are cheap disks. Okay, that's all they are, cheap disks. It's a cheap way to get a 2 terabyte or something drive in there. Hopefully, all of your real work is being done by SSD, and you're using this only for additional storage where you're parking stuff that you want to save. With the small office, home office SMB that has intensive workloads, you'll notice that some of these are not, they're CMR drives, except for the ones in red here. The ones in red happen to be SMR drives and they're warning you about it. And then this is the one that you probably will normally use for SMB and big business. If you have a NAS, you're into this one of these CMR drives on the right-hand side. And then you can also look and see there is a number of places that you can look. And I put a bunch of links in here, how to tell the difference between the DM-SMR and non-SMR CMR drives. There's a link there. There's the Western Digital explains what is Zone Storage Initiative, where they try and justify their existence. Enterprise Storage Forum, shingling LED lives for re-roofing your storage. It's a little bit of a pun on SMR. And blog on the Western Digital was some of the stuff that they found out about the Western Digital drives when it didn't work so well. And that basically is my presentation. So what I will do here is I will stop share. I will go ahead in the chat and I will everyone in file, and I will say your computer. And now I got to find my presentation here. Let's see, we want, no, not that one, this one. There we go. Everyone there can get it. And what I'll do specifically for Kathy is to give her an email.
Well, I'm on my computer now. So what if I click on what
You can,
just,
oh yeah, you can
I
in
can just-
chat. You can take it out of chat. Yes.
okay.
Good. Oh, I don't have to do that. Wow. Okay. Even better.
I thought you'd like that.
Yes. And you can see how easy it is. So I forgot to ask Jerry, when I post something like this, does that automatically get included in the recording?
No, you can download the.
Yeah.
I won't say that. I know when I download the recording, it automatically downloads the chat, but it will not download the file name.
The contents. You'll have to
content.
save it somewhere else. Okay.
Yeah,
And again, the stupid thing wants to save it under Windows System 32 by default.
That just tells you something about Zoom. It wants to take over your machine.
well, you
It's a
can
plot to take over the world.
you can change it to wherever you want though.
Oh, and I did, but if you're not paying attention, it saves it
Yeah,
to Windows System
Yeah, and-
32.
yeah, and then you try and, oh, where did it download to?
Somewhere. That's why I have this little program that I've carried around for a long time called Everything. Find it. I can't find it.
Yep.
Especially on an older, slower machine that has not indexed all of its file system yet. Because every time I boot it up, it thinks, oh, I got to re-index something. So it can never find what I'm looking for in Outlook.
On my machine, because I do a lot of Zoom meetings, it has some idea of the general area of the machine where it's going to save stuff.
Oh,
And so
okay.
it ends up saving it with the meeting notes.
Okay, that's one that I've normally had, is when I've saved it either in the meeting notes or it's saved it in the same folder it wants to do recordings in. But no, it just happens to be a couple times when I've tried to do that.
Okay, so is there something Sanford has his hand up for again?
Yeah, he has his hand up.
Yeah, I sent you a question in the chat, but that's okay if you didn't see it. My question is, what happens when you go and defragment the drive?
You don't defragment an SMR drive.
But let's say you.
It
have to-
automatically will pack the drive, or it can do it if it wants to. But you don't want, there's no reason to pack it because everything is packed in the zone. Remember, it's rewriting by the zone basis.
So if your system's automatically doing some form of defragmenting on a regular basis,
You would not want to use it on an SMR drive.
that's okay. All right.
Well, that's the same reason why you don't defrag an SSD.
An SSD I can understand because of the way it obtains the data. It doesn't matter if you.
Well, because of the way it's written and you have a limited number of writes to a given location.
Yes.
So they turn some of these things off deliberately. I wouldn't be surprised that if it figured out there was a zone controlled device, it would inhibit defragmentation.
Also, you don't defragment zettabyte
Right.
file system, and you
Yeah.
don't defragment Linux file systems.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They already do things differently.
They're expecting
As a-
you to roll it all off to your archive and then roll it back. Yes, go ahead, Bert.
Has anybody had experience with the Western Digital external drives, like a 4 gig, where they have their own backup software built into it?
I've never used their own backup software, or rarely. Or what I've done in some of the cases where I used to get one form of the backup, I would go to their site and get a copy of the free Acronis that they had on their site. Might have been an older version, but they usually had a free version of it. They called it different for the Seagate, but Western Digital almost always had the Acronis out there, like Acronis 2018, that was specific to Western Digital. If you didn't have a Western Digital drive in your configuration, it wouldn't run.
Yeah.
Bert,
The other thing I do is I just use the Macrium Reflect Free and set it up the way I want.
Yeah.
But it is nice to have
This
something
is just
automated.
something somebody else is doing.
Yeah.
And they just bought the drive and used whatever software it was set up with for backup from Western Digital. So
Yeah.
I just wondered how well that's going to survive.
Well, it depends on which one they got. So I'm not sure if they got one of the Easy Share or if they got the Acronis. So Sanford, you had a question.
Yes, I do. All right, so you got this SMR drive and you just put it into your PC, into your computer, whatever it is, and you start loading it up with data. So you've got your backup that's off wherever it's at, and you start loading this data on there. You're going to be throwing terabytes of data at it. Is it going to overwhelm the drive?
If it doesn't have time to idle, true.
So, if
As
you're
long as
sending,
it has time in between the right requests that are coming in, or everything is coming in sequential to it, it would be fine.
how are you supposed to manage that time factor?
Well, if you're using it as a backup target, you're writing sequentially all the time to it.
Okay,
So you're just writing. Now, what I don't know is how do I overwrite everything that's there without reformatting it? Can I delete a whole bunch of it, and does it know that all those zones are no longer used, and you can treat them as empty and then rewrite over them with impunity?
sounds complicated.
It is, and it's a good thing that most of it's done inside of the drive. However, I think it's not quite ready for prime time with seeing the number of problems people have had with it. I would never use it for anything that needs real-time access and needs to do updates. Or you don't have control of the file system, like some of the file systems might be mapped for you in a NAS. You might not have a native file system that is the same as what is being presented to the interface. I mean, I can have my own internal file system on a NAS that nobody knows about and make it designed for very fast operation, but then present it so it appears to be a NTFS file system to the outside world.
Okay,
They've done that for a long time. I mean, PC NFS used to think, I got a really big PC disk here, and it happens to be living on this Sun server, which didn't have a file system anywhere as close to that PC. So same thing can be done in NAS. I don't know how often it would be done, but if it's running a Linux and it wants to run a ZFS, don't go near an SMR drive. Not advisable, at least not at the current time, until somebody either resolves how ZFS can, do this more intelligently with an SMR drive. Basically, I look at SMR as a cost reduction, not necessarily a technological leap. It's a way of selling you the same storage with less components. You got less platters, less heads, less something. I'm going to charge you for a 10 terabyte drive, and If I did it with CMR, we might have to have twice as many platters, more hardware, more cost.
So just reformatting a SMR drive wouldn't necessarily clean it up.
I'm sure it'll do something as long as it was done through, the formatting was done through the drive. So that means the drive itself was taking part in the formatting, so it knew what the request was to do the format, and it could do the format and said, oh, I'm throwing everything away. I can clean off everything. I don't have to worry about any residual zone or any pieces left anywhere. But if I'm doing it through an operating system that doesn't know, depends on what kind of drive it is. Is it a device managed SMR, or is it a host managed SMR? Host managed SMR, the host has to be aware what an SMR drive is and how it's to be handled. Device aware, it takes over the formatting for the host, like, oh, you're doing the format, so just go away, I'll fix it for you. But the question is, do you want to put a SMR drive in a PC? I think there's too many random write requests in a PC for it to work well. It's more suited for a backup target. That means it's an extra drive in a PC that you use to back up to. I need a place to park my nightly backup of the entire office here. So I'm going to park this 3 GB file over here, and it'll be perfectly happy. And I'll put a new one out there tomorrow, and a third one out there, the third, keep on going. Every day I get to do a new 3 GB, and then I do it all over again at the beginning of the week. So I erase one, and if it frees up the zones, great. If it doesn't, then there's another problem. But that's the only place that I see right now that it makes it a really viable contender for type of stuff. It was basically, if it could replace the old computer tape, a serial access mechanism. I write the tape, I rewind the tape, I read the tape. I can randomly read through the disk. That doesn't hurt it. It's when I have to go back and do an update. You don't.
Well, at least you wouldn't, it isn't like tape. You wouldn't have to go back and refresh it all the time to make sure that it was still viable.
That's, well, you did. The way you do it with a tape is get one tape, get another tape, make copy. That's how you refresh the tapes. You always spun the tapes and made a new copy, and it was happy. But anytime you read a disk or a device, you're taking something out of it by doing the read. Okay, the act of reading does take a little bit of the magnetivity away. So at some point in time, it needs to be refreshed. So you have to keep that in mind as well. Other questions?
I got to help Bert out. I got 2 Western Digital, a 3 and a 4 terabyte, and they have, it might be a Cronus on there, I'm not sure. But what I've used it for is you can select the file or folder, and every time you do an update, it will copy that file to the external hard drive, and you've got 5 versions out there. And when you get the 6th, the oldest one disappears and the new one goes in.
Yeah.
So you've got a current copy plus a little history. And that's on my 2 Western Digital, I forget what they are now.
Does it permanently delete it when it deletes the oldest version?
I think so.
Because it would have to be permanently deleted. It just couldn't go to a recycle bin because it would still fill up your hard drive.
Yeah. But you still
The
have,
other thing is that you don't want to drop those.
Yeah, it's probably no more than anything else. Okay.
No, I've known someone who had a laptop and plugged it in daily, and they dropped it occasionally, and Western Digital had to send them a new one.
Yeah, well, the drives are supposedly shock mounted, and they can sense certain G-force and try and pull the heads off sooner. They're quite sophisticated on what they do on some of the disk drives, but because these things are floating so close to the disk, it's very easy to get head disk interference. And once that happens, bad things happen. So let me just tell my brother I can't talk now. Now in meeting. Good. All right. Okay, other questions? I know you never want to drop a hard drive anyway. It's just, if you have an SSD for that person, it might be a good choice. They like to drop their laptop, but then eventually that laptop is not going to work so well.
Yeah, the SSD might be fine, but the laptop might not.
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah, especially when that cooling fan breaks. Yeah.
That's the real world out there.
Yeah. So we'll see how that works out. Any other questions? Oh, Sid, what did you do? Are we looking at Mars?
Yeah. Yeah, this is a live feed.
Is that from the helicopter?
I don't think it's from the helicopter.
Well, they were trying to launch the helicopter from Mars, but I don't know. They were having some problems.
I wasn't
having-
sure what they
they're
were
not gonna be-
planning to do and when they were doing it.
They're
I
going to be reprogramming the helicopter. That was the latest I read today, is that they're going to be having new commands sent to it, and it's going to take them a little bit to get that done.
Did they actually have it try and take off and return or not yet?
No, they
No.
spun it up to just below the RPMs, just below takeoff. And I don't know what it was that they tried to bring it up to, but then their fail-safe software governing shut it down prematurely.
Okay.
So they found some software issues and they need to reprogram the software. And that just came out today that they're going to do that.
Okay. It's going to be a little hard if they have to make a site trip.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You figure they would have had that thing working before it left. I don't know.
Well,
I never
They couldn't
saw-
test it because they can test the lower the density of the atmosphere, but they have no way of testing Mars gravity.
And Mars atmosphere is thinner.
Yeah,
So
it is
the
thinner.
whole thing is complex, and this is just a demonstration. That's all it is. They just want to know, can this work? That's all they want to find out.
Yeah.
takes them
know.
one step closer to whatever they're trying to do.
You
Yeah,
remember
well,
that? You remember that toy we used to have that you would wind it up and then you just pull the thing and it would spin and
Yeah.
disappear? That's
Yeah.
what's going to happen to this thing when they touch it off. That was nice. Oh, we only have one. Did he say what?
How much money if you made over 38,000 last year?
I'll tell him. I'll send him a copy of this thing. How that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you see the ad for the flying car today?
Which one?
No.
There was a flying car ad. They were taking $500 so you could reserve one.
Reserve a ride or a
No.
flying car? The last one I saw was 500 grand.
Yes, that's what it is.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they've been advertising that one in Popular Mechanics and whatever for years. Oh, look, the car that you're going to replace your car with, and you'll be able to fly anywhere. Yeah, except you have to be a pilot, and there are certain places you're not allowed to fly, and they don't point that little tidbit out.
So they only want $500 down, and then you owe $499, $500.
Well, I
But you
think
get in line.
You get in line, yes. That's to get in line for something that may or may not happen.
Actually, I had a client that had an airplane that was a home-built airplane. And he got 6,000 people to put up a couple $100 each in the hopes that they would be able to get one when it was available. It was never available.
Was that like the BD?
That was the BD5, yes.
Well, my uncle had a BD5.
Well,
He actually
most
had
of
one.
them didn't make it
Well,
because they couldn't have an engine.
Yeah, but he actually had one. Yeah, had the kit, and then ended up reselling it to somebody else.
Well,
It wasn't the
Uh,
BD5J. It was the BD5. I know you had to have your own engine. So,
right.
Wasn't it a Volkswagen engine?
Well, there some people tried different ones. They bought engines from a company in Germany, and then the next month they went bankrupt.
Well, the problem is you have to have an engine that runs consistently and doesn't ever cough. Okay, because you can't pull over to the side too easily. And I don't remember what the glide ratio of a BD5 was, but I think it was a little, just the side of a rock.
Well, it was an interesting client. I went down there to Kansas, and the day we got there, the salesman got killed because he was demonstrating it, and it just went right into the ground.
See, that's why you have to have a good glide ratio. Now, my best man for my wedding, he used to play in a, let's see, I think it was a Cirrus. That thing had a 42-to-1 glide ratio, but it didn't have an engine. You had to get pulled up wherever you're going, and then you flew around until you came down. And when you came down, you came down.
Well,
But
they
you-
designed that on an HP 9830 computer that I was a consultant on. And those same people went on to, SpaceX astronauts, all those kind of things eventually.
Okay, cool. All right. Other questions? Carl, you're very quiet tonight. He's got his good and plenty. That's why.
Yeah, but if it's good, you can't have plenty of it.
You can't have plenty. No, I cannot. I can't even look at those now. The sugar just goes off the scale. Yeah, my blood sugar go bing, 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 bing,
But
bing.
no more Neckos.
No more Neckos. I still have some Neckos. I'm going to hang on to them for another 20 years, and then I'm going to sell them as classic Neckos. I think I got about a dozen left.
They were talking about starting up production of nickel wafers again.
It
Even
may
though the
not
company-
be the same formula. The old one had too much sugar in it.
Right.
It was nothing but sugar and coloring.
Yes.
And there was some cornstarch in there too.
Yeah.
Who was it? Who was the guy that did the South Pole? He took Neckos with him, right? He took 2 pounds of Neckos per person with him.
Are you talking about Bird? Who?
Yeah, I think it was.
Who went to the South Pole? Yeah,
Yeah.
could be.
At least that's what they used to say on their website. I miss that website. What I really don't miss is the chocolate only Neckos.
Mm.
That's the only one I ever found that they ever did the specific one flavor of. I never found one for licorice. Guess it was a cultivated taste. And of course, you know it because of its name, right? What Necco stood for?
No.
The New England Candy Company.
Yeah, New England.
Ah.
They were based in Boston.
Yeah. Now, the question is if they come back in some other place like, Syria, will they still be called the New England Candy Company?
No, it's someplace else in Massachusetts they're thinking of doing.
Okay. I haven't checked to see because I thought they were coming back, but I think the guy only got the rights to the name or something, and I didn't have the equipment or something was wrong there.
Yeah, I don't think they
Spangler
quite got it.
Candy. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they quite got there.
Yeah.
Our
Let's-
local news would be full of it if they had.
Well, it says they're manufacturing them, but I don't know if this is current or not.
They did do some limited production runs.
The 24 count in the original 8 flavors. But the question is, did they use the original 8 colors?
Well, some of those are banned now.
I know they're banned now because when they went with the new safer colors, they all became pastel. Like, what happened to the orange one that was really orange and the green one that left your tongue like a Martian?
Yeah, and all those candies that used to taste like aspirins.
Yeah. Yep. Gosh, nostalgia is going to kick in here. I should have saved one of the original Neckos that had the original colors because the bright color, like, whoa, that
Yeah.
isn't candy. That's pop art. Okay. Any suggestions for future meetings? Here's your request.
How we can make our own flight to Mars.
It's going to take something like a startup, like what Elon Musk did.
We could do that.
Yeah, we can do that. I don't think I got enough time left to do that though, not productively. Any other ideas? I think there's still a car out there orbiting somewheres.
Yeah. That was Elon Musk.
I'm just waiting for that car to come back and take out something like Argentina.
Except instead of a Tesla, it should have been a DeLorean.
Yeah, that would have
It
been,
would have been cool.
that would have been, yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
just
but
waiting. I'm just waiting for some extraterrestrial civilization to drive it back.
or they find it and said, why the hell are you polluting our environment? At least you have an electric car, but we have to recycle the lithium battery.
Yeah. I'm thinking it'll probably be like Third Rock from the Sun, where they drive it back. So
I got the best car. When I walked in for my dialysis with my walker, one of the techs said, "We got to rename that walker." And he said, "Okay, that's your new Ferrari."
yeah.
Okay, I have a question, and you're all probably going to be very bored by this, but this is the first time I'm doing Zoom on my computer, and I've been poking around here, and I wanted to see if I could do a virtual background because I can't do virtual backgrounds on my iPad.
Very simple, Kathy. Go next to where you have the video camera on the taskbar.
Uh-huh.
You got that little up arrow.
Okay.
Click it
Okay.
and go to settings.
Oh, is it video settings?
Yes.
Ah.
Background and filters,
Background and
Filters.
filters.
not video, but background and filters.
Filters.
Okay.
And
You're
then to the right, you should have background pictures or something like that.
okay, and it says your device requires a green screen to support
Don't
virtual.
don't worry about it.
Don't worry about that, and then just click on virtual backgrounds.
Right, and some pictures should show up.
No, there's no pictures showing up. There's also an option for video filters.
I know.
Bring your own pictures in.
Okay.
Bring your own pictures in.
You have to upload some pictures.
Like that. I like that.
Or what you can do there, where you got the background pictures, there's a little what is it? File. Click on it.
Wait,
And-
should I, you said I don't have to do anything with the green screen? I don't have to
No,
click on, I don't
no,
have a green screen?
No. Go back to background filters,
Okay.
and then probably in the lower right-hand corner. It's
Oh,
on-
studio effects?
No.
Where it
You
says-
had the video filters, yeah.
where it says plus.
Oh, there's a plus that says add image or video.
Yes.
And then if I click on add image, oh, I see. It goes out to my computer and I can pick a
can-
photo. Okay.
Yeah, you can select anything that you want.
Okay, I'll go. I have no idea. I haven't used this computer in a long time, so I have no idea what photos I got out there, but I'll pick something before next meeting.
Okay, cool.
But I can't just do, it looks like I can't do one of the default ones though.
I know, I had it when I first downloaded Zoom, where I had the defaults.
Uh-huh.
And everything I download now or update, I don't get the defaults, and I don't know why. And
Okay.
I'm talking on a new computer from scratch.
Wow.
Now, if you want to use a background that is animated, you definitely need like an additional video card that like an NVIDIA or something in your laptop, and that usually doesn't come in the basic laptops.
Okay.
Well, I updated mine to try and get a more robust video card, than the standard.
Well, are you using a desktop or a laptop? She's probably
Both,
using a
either,
laptop.
Yeah, I'm
I-
using a laptop.
Yeah.
usually they have the end video, what is it, the 330 or something like that.
Yeah,
And
but
then-
hers might not have anything, Jerry. That's the
Yeah.
thing, is that unless it's an
Yeah.
upscale
Oh,
laptop.
oh,
Yeah.
wait a minute. Here's an option that says choose virtual background.
Okay,
Mhm.
Let's see.
pick one.
Ouch.
Yeah, but still nothing's, it just
Nothing's
went
there.
to the same screen and it,
Nothing
when I,
there?
there's nothing there
Yeah, I
now.
know,
Yeah.
that's what I mean.
I have plenty of nice pictures. I'll just use one of my pictures once I go through them.
And that way,
Well,
that
yep.
way we won't be able to see you rocking in your chair.
Am I making you dizzy doing this? I try to sit still, but every once in a while it rocks on me. Thank you for your help. They'll be
Yeah.
fun.
I'm trying to remember which Heinlein novel it was that the guy was trying to develop get a trip to Mars, trying to finally get to Mars. And by the time he got there, the nerds had already developed teleportation and they just sort of popped off over to Mars and then popped back. That's the way to do it. Quantum singularities and okay, we're on Mars. Just make sure you get the mapping algorithm correctly.
Mhm.
And then you have to find some way to deal with the inertia of where you're going and the inertia of where you've been. Canceling that out as well. They don't seem to discuss that at all in Star Trek. Oh, we're just going to teleport you up and down again. Well, as long as you don't have your frame of reference moving, you're fine.
Well,
Okay.
On the background and filters screen, I don't have pictures just like Kathy, but what does the option on the bottom mean that says mirror my video?
It flips your screen around from left, but basically like you're looking in a mirror.
so it's
Oh,
for
I
people who can't figure out which hand is gonna move when they do their
Yeah.
hand.
Yeah.
So this is my right hand, but if I don't mirror it here, it's coming from my left.
Right. Yep.
The other
I'm not
thing
married.
thing that happens if you don't mirror is if you're wearing a t-shirt with a logo or you have a water bottle or something, the lettering is going to be backwards.
Hmm.
That's why.
That's why you mirror.
Or if you want to part your hair on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have your hand up, Sanford?
Yes, I did. It's not related question, but it has to do with video. Why is it when you're watching things that are either on YouTube or not necessarily YouTube, could be on TV, video that's being played, and you'll watch the motion goes smooth, then it stutters, and then it catches up and keeps going, stutters and catches up. Is this like a frame rate issue, a transcoding issue? I see this all the time, and maybe because I have an eye for it, but I just see it when I'm watching stuff. And it could be, it's not just YouTube, it's all over the place.
I've seen
Well,
it, I've had it on
Depends a
regular
lot
cable.
on latency. Okay.
Latency.
Latency of your connection. If you have jitter on your connection. So
Well, it's like even on TV, it could be a commercial on TV.
Yeah,
and some of those commercials have the same problem. The transmission medium can have errors in their retransmission. Ever since they went to digital on most of these backhauls, there's the capability of retransmitting. And if it doesn't get there in time, then they just throw it away, and you might have a occasional pixelation. Pixelation said it didn't get retransmitted in time, missed the window. I'm going to show a pixel instead.
and that can also result in it freezing on a frame momentarily and then moving forward, suddenly jumping.
Yeah, same
And
similar things. The packet did
especially
not
with
get there in time.
Especially if there's fast motion going on.
Yeah.
And again, latency and jitter, as Ed says, are two of the main factors.
I mean, the biggest difficulty whenever you're doing a analog transmission through a digital medium is when I try and digitize all of my let's say, for example, voice. When you digitize voice, you usually take 10 millisecond samples and you put 2 of them together in a 20 millisecond packet, and you send that, and it goes out 50 times a second. Okay, and that's their normal vocoder is doing. Now, if a packet gets dropped, your ear will usually make up for that packet being not delivered. The other thing that has to be done on the other end is there has to be a buffer that is used to play back. So you put stuff in the buffer, but you don't start playing it right away. You wait an intentional 30, 50, whatever half the size of the buffer is, okay? And you want the buffer to stay around half full. So as new stuff comes in, okay, it's in the buffer being played out at the right rate. If you lose a packet, you might have the next packet ready already, so you don't have to stop decoding, and hopefully then the replacement packet gets in on the other end. So by having those buffers built in, you handle the occasional jitter of a couple milliseconds or delay. And the same thing can be done in video. Remember, when they digitize video on HD, there's a 3-second delay. However, if you ever switch between HD and SD on the same channel, you'll know there's an additional 3 seconds. So if you flip between the two, you'll hear the same word coming through or something like that. I've noticed that on multiple places. That's because the HD is larger information, larger packets. So they're trying to handle the jitter and delay without you seeing it. That's why all digital broadcasts are delayed. There's another reason for this. In addition, there's 3-second delay on any live feeds. They almost always do that.
Yeah, so when I record I record a broadcast on my TiVo, for example, that will usually play back pretty smoothly, unless there's a complete dropout.
Yeah, I mean, and it depends on the type of, like Skype did a different type of vocoding. They had the low internet bit rate vocoder, which would do 50 millisecond packet windows. The typical 80 PCM, which is going for normal voice, uses the 10 millisecond 2 packets together every, so every 20 milliseconds you send packets. If you're going to do something more exotic like VSELP or any of the other ones that they use for cellular telephones, the whole idea on those was to have a lower impact bit rate on the information. With normal audio, it was 64 kilobit per second audio that was coming through. All right, let's do this. I'm going to
By your command?
By your command, yes. That's my notification on my phone. My brothers decided to start talking among themselves, so they do a group hug over MMS.
Sid, that's Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
I know that.
Oh,
I got it. It. Actually, that was Battlestar Galactica original, not the.
Yes, it is the original. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
That used to be built into some of the communicators that I used to use that had, again, a very low impact bit rate. And they would communicate via multicast over Wi-Fi. So they would multicast to each other on one of the lower speeds, and everybody who was there could pick it up, and it was like a walkie-talkie. Worked very well too. And they're about this big. They were very popular. Walmart Canada loved these things until Motorola decided to sell it to Zebra, and then Zebra stopped selling them. Because I used to, I was the level 3 tech support. I was level 3 tech support. There was nobody else.
I never understood the Cylons in the original show because they were designed in such a way that they were inefficient. I mean, their bodies were not designed to be properly made to be effective.
And if you remember properly, they kicked the humans' butts too. on Caprica and half a dozen other planets.
Well, that's because they caught him by surprise.
Oh, they cheated. Yeah, uh-huh. A
No,
smart
no, they
machine.
caught him. They caught him by surprise. But I'm just saying, if you look at some of the ones in Terminator,
Yeah,
they were much better designed to move and to act than those Cylons, which were big, bulky things that just didn't seem with a flashy eye back and forth.
yeah, true. But if they were going to do it right, it would be a drone that could hover anywhere and take you out with an energy weapon. Yes.
But it was, or either that or a Dalek.
Well, yeah, the Daleks that fly. Yes. Yeah.
I
That
like
was
the
my other
original
choice.
Dalek.
Yep, that was my other choice for the notification tone, but that's kind of dangerous going around with the notification tone in your phone in the airport and says, "Do not move, I will exterminate."
Yeah, but I still like the original Daleks with the plunger for.
And the way you could get away from those is running upstairs.
The original ones, yeah.
They did not know how to do stairs. That's what Tom Baker said. Yeah, just run upstairs. Classic stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Has anybody here played with WSL?
Yes.
Why, Windows is a second language?
Yeah, no, it's Windows Subsystem for Linux.
No, I haven't
I
played
have
with
it
it.
installed, but I haven't really used it.
I noticed,
activated it.
yeah, I noticed Ubuntu has a version for it. I just wondered if anybody had played with that.
What, does Ubuntu have a Windows subsystem for something else? No.
Windows Subsystem for Linux can handle special versions of Ubuntu, Fedora, a couple of others,
Okay.
but
then
they're
you
not they're not complete Linuxes.
Okay, it sounded like they were. That's why I was curious.
No, they're meant for developers who are developing apps and want to test them cross-platform or
Yeah.
cloud apps.
I mean, the ultimate test is to have a virtual machine running and then just take it over to the virtual machine and see how it works.
Right, right.
I mean, that's the way I've tested those kinds of things. Or if I needed a Linux system that did something that I didn't want to have to deploy like a Windows Server 2012 or 2016 or whatever the new one is, I booted up a Ubuntu thing, even Ubuntu without a graphics interface, and ran my Radius server. Worked fine.
Yeah.
Just like I had a big
Yeah.
Radius server sitting there, like, oh, look, just like downtown.
You know, from a consumer point of view, Linux takes up so much less space than Windows. You might just as well actually set up Linux. And I will be talking about Linux in a future South Suburban meeting.
Oh, cool.
Just Linux for newbies kind of thing, not
Yeah.
anything really technical.
I was my Linux foray. I was playing with Puppy Linux because I thought I forget the guy who developed it, but he was really active and you could trade messages back and forth with him. And Puppy was designed to run on almost nothing. And then he got the bright idea to make a Puppy which was modular and could use Debian or Ubuntu or other back ends. So you could even pick which derivative of Puppy to run.
Well, you know, with Linux, you can use any distro, any desktop environment, but you need to have your home directory and maybe a few settings be portable. And that's what they're working on in Ubuntu, making home D, which will be a portable home directory.
Ah, that's nice.
And once you do that,
You
the
don't
way
care.
they used to set up Linux, and I may be able to go over this eventually in a talk, the way they used to set up Linux was not with folders or directories, but with partitions.
Mhm.
And if you have a home partition, you can have root partitions of many different Linuxes using the same user data or home partition. And it'll probably work 90% of the time.
Yeah, probably would. Or you have your home partition on a shared drive that's nearby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Linux is not like Windows. There's no registry. There's no need to get everything set up per machine or per instance. And there's no licensing issues and things like that. So it does make it much more compact potentially.
And there's a lot less chance of viruses. Because there's
Yeah,
so
but
many
there's
different versions out there, they don't know what to infect you with.
there's still rootkits that generally work with the kernel unless you harden it.
You've still got a sudo, and yeah, if you don't run with
Yeah.
any of the hardening stuff, you can get into trouble. But for the
Right.
most part, there's not a lot of hackers out there might be using Linux, but they're not going to be trying to hack Linux.
They won't be trying to hack desktop Linux. They do hack Linux servers.
Yeah, they do hack Linux, that's true. But if all of a sudden you were to lie to the other end and tell it through the web browser, I'm not running Linux, I'm running Windows.
You can do that.
Yes, you can.
Sometimes I have had to do that to get into my Comcast email.
Before or after they get rid of the stupid app. That app is useless. I mean, it
Not
never
into
works
apps.
most of the time. My wife is a fan of it, and she's depressed that it's going away. And I got to find an alternative for her. Any suggestions?
Well, I use Linux, so I use Claus Mail.
Yeah, okay. I'm thinking of maybe trying to move her to Outlook, but I don't know if I'm going to regret it or not.
I'll tell you what, as a generic thing, and it's also portable to Linux, Thunderbird.
Yeah, I know, but Thunderbird has gone through portions of where it's supported and where it's not. I have a friend of mine who's a master plumber that's been long since retired, who swears by Thunderbird, and sometimes swears at.
That has happened, but I think they're on pretty solid footing right now.
They're
More so
back to
than the-
support again. Okay.
More so than the Firefox browser,
Yeah. Okay.
because it may be losing Google for various reasons having to do with the what is it? Article 223 or whatever it is, 230.
Okay.
The platforms are being held liable for various things they weren't before,
Oh, that's not
and they're
good.
trying to break up Google and all that. But anyway, I am scheduled, I think it's in May, to do something for South Suburban about Linux for Windows users.
Okay, cool.
Cool. I put a link in the chat. The APCUG folks
Oh, yeah.
put out a 4-part Linux workshop. So
They're on,
Yeah.
they're on version 7 right now.
mm,
That is coming up next Wednesday.
Okay, cool.
so I
All
put
right, folks.
put that one in. I was going to ask, anybody have any recommendations for Android emulators for Windows?
No, don't have one currently.
Personally, I think they don't usually work.
Well, it's the difficulty in emulating the MIPS chipset. It doesn't
Well,
quite, yeah.
Well, there used to be one in a developer edition put out by Google, I thought.
And I think
There
it
was.
had issues.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the biggest name I keep hearing about is Blue Note.
Haven't used it.
Okay. All right. Thought it was worth asking. And I'll throw out there, I got an email today from the Uniform people. They're doing on the 27th a presentation on Sonic Pi.
Sonic Pi?
Sonic Pi, which is a music development system on the Pi.
Well, that sounds interesting.
Mm.
So is it, what kind of music development? So,
Oh, music development. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have been hearing about that in my Linux groups.
Yeah, the little abstract says Sonic Pi is a code-based music creation and performance tool written in Ruby, packaged for use on the Pi. Allows computer-generated music and other stuff. So.
Yeah, the fellow who's developing that is in the Boston area, and I have seen at least one presentation he did to one of our groups.
oh, so it's a synthesizer replacement.
No, it's a music teaching system, isn't it?
Okay, all right.
there's a whole ecosystem of things that you can do, and it's supposed to teach modular programming skills for kids. Because in the music industry, of course, they're doing more and more programming.
Okay.
So
And
anyway, that's on Tuesday, the 27th.
Okay. Thank you.
And they're a meetup group to sign up and get the Zoom link.
yeah, there is a meetup coming up about that. I am aware of it.
Okay, cool. All right, folks. Well, I'm going to have to sign off here. Thank you very much. If there's something that you think you'd really like to have, send me an email, and we'll see what we can do.
$1 million?
Well, yeah, we could do that as long as it's monopoly money.
Well, you said if there's anything you really want.
Yeah, okay, you can run it. I just want to make sure. But if there's something as a subject for our presentations, let me know.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Pat.
Thank you.
Thanks,
guys.
guys.
Bye.
Great job,
Bye-bye.
buddy.
Take care.
That was very good about those drives.
Terry, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
You survived the April 15th?
Well, yeah, I got to May 15th. We put a few people off, but problem is people want to know, they got a refund or they owe. And so, you still kind of, a few of the business ones we kind of put off, but most of the people want to know, do I owe, do I get a refund, how much? So, you gotta, do most of them, yeah.
You still got another month though.
Yeah, I know. Well, I tell you, the bigger this, forgiving the unemployment, that 10,000, boy, that it made a lot of difference, for people that, went on unemployment, whether or not it was because of COVID or not. We already done a bunch of them, and then they, finally, the end of February, the IRS got or they changed the software. So anyway, that's been interesting. And that is this PPP stuff. I mean, all the government free money. It's just everybody wants on it, and all the forms you got to fill out, and they want copies of 941s, which are payroll tax quarterlies. It's well, it's a good thing, and they're going to keep extending it. I mean, by just extending it through June, I'll probably, they're giving the money out, and everybody's signing up for it. Even the self-employeds are getting in on it now. So it's, yeah.
Terry, did you get your
it's
shots?
like double work. It's like double work for us. Yeah.
Terry, did you get your shots?
Yes, actually, I got my second one today.
Okay,
Yeah, I
congratulations.
feel, I had the first one about 3 weeks ago, and we tried, like Walgreens, CVS, we in DuPage County, everybody's, we have no supply, and we'll call you. And all of a sudden, a couple of weeks ago, we got a call, we know where from. Show up at Walgreens, at 2:00 one day, and we did. So, but yeah, so finally,
Well, I had mine a week ago, so I'm still here.
the second one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It didn't bother me at all, either the first one or the second one. My wife, probably twice her size, but headaches and fever and body aches all over, but
Well, see how you do tomorrow. It's the second day is day after.
oh
is-
really? Well, I'm pretty healthy, so
Well, at least your arm gets sore anyway.
yeah, I mean, but no, well, luckily, I have blood type O. I think I talked about that, but I mean, we had a client that type A, and yeah, he was in the hospital a couple of weeks with the virus, and another client that got the virus on an airplane. And he said the only possible thing, he had to take an airplane trip. He caught it, and he was in the hospital and he was on the ventilator, and he survived, but now he's still got side effects. So, but he said
Well,
the
I
only
stay home,
possible place
so
he
I
could
don't
have
have
caught
the
it was
issue.
on an airplane. The ventilating, the airflow system. Yeah. So you never know.
All right, Jerry, how you been feeling? What happened with your hip?
I don't know if I pulled a muscle or what, but I've been all over the place. I had 2 MRIs, a bunch of x-rays. I'm on my 1, 2, 3rd doctor, 4th doctor, trying to get things solved, but I feel good, but and the hip right now it's not really sore. That's why I think it's a pulled muscle, I'm going to physical therapy, and we'll see how that works.
Did you get your shots, both shots?
Oh yeah.
So I don't know, sometimes people are having aches from the shots.
No, this wasn't from the shots. I think I did it myself. Because it was before the shot, I think that I got it.
Okay.
But
well, nothing's easy to stay healthy and all that.
I know. Like right now, I don't feel anything, but it depends what I'm doing.
Oh. Jerry, why have you had to change doctors, or what are they helping you with?
Well, one was the family doctor, one was my knee and hip doctor, another one is the spine doctor.
Everybody's a specialist.
Yeah.
Isn't that the truth? Yeah, that's absolutely right. And if it's out of their area, they don't want to do it because they're afraid of the insurance or whatever.
I know. Well, that's why I say
we can't handle that. We don't do that. Yeah, I know.
It's just taking time because you're making times when they're available, and that may take a week or so.
Yeah, I know. Well, even the doctors, they don't want to see patients. You call them up and they say, don't come into the office, how you feeling? Oh, or you need a prescription? Fine. And I'll go to, I'll order it for you over at Walgreens or whatever, but don't come into the office, they don't want to see patients, they don't want to get sick. It's nuts,
No. They're very careful right now.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, of course, they see sick people, that's a problem, So.
Yeah, they check you when you come in for your temperature. If you're over 100, you go back home.
No, yeah, well, yeah. Even when I went to get the shots, they still took the temperature.
Oh yeah, they just want they're playing safe. That's all.
Yeah.
Actually, they didn't do that when I got it in Schaumburg. They didn't take temperature. They were doing 6,000 people that day.
They put this thing like a thermometer against your forehead or whatever.
Right, but they didn't do that in Schaumburg when I went.
I'm surprised.
But they had 100 people giving shots at the same time.
Well, I was talking to the pharmacist today, and he said he's doing 30 a day, and next month he's going to be doing 60 shots a day.
Well, because the pharmacy doesn't have the space to have multiple people at the same time. So they're limited as to how many they can do at any location.
They can probably do 3 or 4 an hour or something like that.
Yeah, about 3. Well, because they had about 3 every 15 minutes. So we were there, when I was there, they had a bunch of people waiting, but they'd do 3 and then they'd wait up, until the next 15 and then take another 3. Yeah.
Well, I tried to get an appointment at Walgreens locally originally, and they never responded, and never, even to this day. But there was a regional event in Schaumburg that the suburbs I'm in Palatine and Arlington Heights, Buffalo Grove, they all had the ability to have one day with 6,000 people going through. And then second date already set up also,
Yeah,
Pfizer.
yeah.
Well, they advertised United Center but it was only for Cook County people. So, I heard about.
Well,
some
they
people
opened-
down
I
there,
thought-
and they refused them because they weren't Cook County.
No, I thought after a while they opened it up to everyone because they didn't get enough from Cook County coming.
Well,
that was
It
just
wasn't,
lately.
it wasn't the first couple days, it was later on.
Well, we've had clients that like drove to Springfield, couldn't get couldn't get it. Another couple drove up to Kenosha, couldn't get it, I mean, people are really going nuts over this,
I have a nephew that's 15, and so he doesn't qualify for anything yet.
No. Yeah, well, my
It's
high school
16, it's
daughter,
16 and above right now.
Right.
What even my daughter, the high school one, she's got half the class is in classroom and the other half is Zoom, and then they switch the next day. Half are in Zoom and the other half are in class. So that's how she's teaching. Yeah.
Well, who knows if this will ever get over, but
Oh,
We'll
I
see.
think this is going to run for another year, easy, or 2 years. I mean, 'cause a lot of people we talk to, clients, they're not getting the shots. Some of them said their doctor said, don't take it, it might kill you. I mean, it's, it's going to take a long time.
and now they're talking about a booster.
Yeah,
Well, they don't know how long the vaccine's effective to. Now, that's what I heard today. Is it going to be good for 6 months, a year? Who knows,
Well, something to look forward to.
Well, yeah, I mean,
It may-
look at downtown Chicago, it's empty. Go to the train station, there are very few cars parked there. All the, commercial office buildings around us here, the parking lots are pretty empty, it's,
Well, I don't go
people-
anywhere.
People are gonna
I mean,
figure out
other
that
than
they
to
can
pick up
work half the
groceries.
time from home and half the time in the office, I mean, yeah.
And for groceries, I haven't put it in my trunk and I don't have to go near anybody.
Oh, then you got the IRS. They're not processing the mail, stuff mailed in.